This is a class on the Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam recorded on November 6, 2022. We are continuing our reading of the introduction of the book.
By realization of Brahman or becoming one with the Supreme. Had it not been so, then those who are already situated in the transcendental bliss of Brahman would not have been attracted by the transcendental bliss of the pastimes of the Lord. After this, a great meeting was arranged by the devotees of the Lord, in which all the sannyasis were invited, including the Lord and Prakashananda Saraswati. In this meeting, both the scholars, the Lord and Prakashananda, had a long discourse on the spiritual values of Sankirtan movement, and the gist idea is given below. The great Mayavadi sannyasi Prakashananda inquired from the Lord as to the reason of his diversion to the Sankirtan movement instead of studying the Vedanta Sutras. He said that it is the duty of a sannyasi to read the Vedanta Sutras, and what was the cause that he indulged in Sankirtan. After such inquiry, the Lord submissively replied as follows. The reason of my diversion to the Sankirtan movement from the study of Vedanta is that I'm a great fool. The Lord thus represented himself as one of numberless fools of this age who are absolutely incapable to study the Vedanta philosophy. Fools' indulgence in the study of Vedanta has caused so many havocs in the society. And therefore, he continued to say, and because I'm a great fool, so my spiritual master forbade me play with Vedanta philosophy. He said, better that I may chant the holy name of the Lord, and that would deliver me from the material bondage. In this age of Kali, there is no other religion than glorifying the Lord by utterance of his holy name. And that is the injunction of all the revealed scriptures. And my spiritual master has taught me one shloka from the Brihad Naradiya Puranam, which is as follows. Hare Nama, Hare Nama, Hare Nama eva kevalam, kalau nastyeva, nastyeva, nastyeva gatiranyata. So on the order of my spiritual master, I chant the holy name of Hari, and I am now mad after this holy name whenever I utter the holy name. I forget myself completely, and as such, sometimes I laugh, cry, dance like a madman. I thought within myself that if I have not gone actually mad by this process of chanting the holy name, and therefore inquired from my spiritual master about it. I told him that I have become now mad by chanting the holy name, and what is this? Please let me know. My spiritual master informed me that it is the real effect of chanting the holy name, that it produces a transcendental emotion, which is a rare manifestation. It is the sign of love, of God, which is the ultimate end of life. The love of God is transcendental to liberation, mukti, and as such, it is called the fifth stage of spiritual realization, above the stage of liberation. Actual result of chanting the holy name of Krishna is to attain the stage of love of God, and it was good that fortunately I was favored with the blessings. On hearing this statement from the Lord, the Mayavadi sannyasi inquired from the Lord what was the harm if he would study the Vedanta along with the chanting of the holy name. Prakashananda Saraswati knew it well that the Lord was formerly known as Nimai Pandit, a very learned scholar of Navadvip, and his representation as the great fool was certainly impregnated with some purpose. So, on this inquiry by the sannyasi, the Lord smiled and said, "My dear sir, if you do not mind, then I can reply your inquiry." All the sannyasis were very much pleased on the Lord for his simple dealings, and they unanimously replied that they would not mind for whatever he may reply. The Lord then began to say as follows: Vedanta Sutra is transcendental words or sounds uttered by the transcendental personality of Godhead. As such, in the Vedanta, there cannot be any human deficiencies like mistake, illusion, cheating, or inefficiencies. The message of Upanishads is expressed in the Vedanta Sutras, and what is said there directly is certainly glorified by themselves. Whatever interpretations have been given by Shankaracharya have no direct bearings on the sutras, and therefore such commentation makes everything spoiled for the purpose. The word Brahman indicates the greatest of all, full with transcendental opulences, without anyone else on the same level. Such Brahman, who is ultimately the personality of Godhead, is covered by such indirect interpretations and established as impersonal. Everything that is in the spiritual world is full of transcendental bliss, including the form, body, place, and paraphernalia of the Lord. All are eternally cognizant and blissful. But it is not the fault of the Acharya Shankara that he has so interpreted. But if somebody accepts it, then certainly he becomes doomed. Anyone who accepts the transcendental body of the personality of Godhead as something mundane certainly commits the highest order of blasphemy. The Lord thus spoke to the sannyasi almost in the same line as he spoke to the Bhattacharya of Puri, and by forceful arguments he nullified the Mayavad interpretations of the Vedanta Sutra. And all the sannyasis present there reclaimed the Lord as personified Vedas and directly the personality of Godhead. All the sannyasis became converted to the cult of bhakti, and all of them accepted the holy name of the Lord Sri Krishna. All of them dined together with the Lord in the midst of them. After this conversion of the sannyasis, the popularity of the Lord became more conspicuous at Varanasi, and thousands of people assembled to see the Lord in person. The Lord thus established the primary importance of Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam, and he defeated all other systems of spiritual realization. Since then, everyone at Varanasi became overwhelmed with the transcendental Sankirtan movement. While the Lord was camping at Varanasi, Sanatana Goswami also arrived there after retiring from office. He was formerly one of the state ministers of the government of Bengal, then under the regime of Nawab Hussain Shah. He had some difficulty in getting relief from the state service, as the Nawab was reluctant to leave him. He came to Varanasi, and the Lord taught him all about the principles of devotional service. He taught him about the constitutional position of the living being, the cause of his bondage under material conditions, his eternal relation with the personality of Godhead. He was taught about the transcendental position of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, how he expends himself in different plenary portions of incarnations, And how does he dominate in different parts of the universe and the nature of his transcendental abode? He was taught about the devotional activities, its different stages of development, and the rules and regulations for achieving the gradual stages of spiritual perfection. He was taught about the symptoms of different incarnations in different ages and how to detect them with reference to the context of revealed scriptures. The subject of teachings to Sanatana Goswami forms a big chapter in the text and essays of Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita, and to explain the whole thing in minute details will require a volume itself. We shall try to put in these special matters in a different chapter conveniently. At Mathura, he visited all the important places and then he reached Vrindavana. Lord Chaitanya appeared in the family of a high-caste Brahmin, and over and above that, a sannyasi. He was the preceptor for all the varnas and ashramas, but he used to accept meals from all classes of Vaishnavas. At Mathura, the Sanodiya Brahmins are considered in lower status of society, but the Lord accepted meals in such family also because he, his host, happened to be a disciple of Madhavendra Puri. At Vrindavana, the Lord took baths in 24 important bathing places in Ghats. He traveled all the 12 important Vamsa forests. In these forests, all the cows and birds welcomed him as if he was their very old friend. The Lord also began to embrace all the trees of those forests, and by doing so, he was feeling the symptoms of transcendental ecstasy. Sometimes he felt unconscious, and he was made to regain consciousness by resounding the holy name of Krishna. The transcendental symptoms that were visible on the body of the Lord during his travel within the forests of Vrindavana were all unique and inexplicable. And we have just given a guessed idea only. Some of the important places that were visited by the Lord in Vrindavana are as follows. 1. Kamyavan, Adishwar, Paravan Sarovar, Kadirvan, Sheshashayi, Kelatirtha, Bandiravan, Bhadravan, Sriban, Luhaban, Mahaban, Gokul, Kaliyahrad, Dvadasaditya, Keshitirtha, etc. When he saw the place where rasa dance took place, he at once fell down there in trance. So long he remained at Vrindavana, he made his headquarters at Akrura Ghat. From Vrindavan, his personal servitor, Krishnadas Vipra, induced him to go back to Prayag to take bath during the Magh Mela. The Lord acceded to this proposal, and they started for Prayag. On the way, they were met with some Pathans, amongst whom there was a learned Mulana. The Lord had some talks with the Mulana with his companions, and the Lord convinced the Mulana that in the Quran also there is description of Bhagavad Dharma in Krishna. All the Pathans were converted into his cult of devotional service. When he came back to Prayag, Srila Rupa Goswami, along with his younger brother, met him near Vindu Madhava temple. The Lord was this time welcomed by the people of Prayag more respectfully. Vallabha Bhatta, who resided on the other bank of Prayag in the village of Arail, came to receive him at his place, and while going there, the Lord jumped on the river Yamuna. With great difficulty, he was again picked up in unconscious state and thus visited the headquarters of Vallabhata. This Vallabhata was one of his chief admirers, and later on he inaugurated his own party of the Vallabha Sampradaya. On the bank of the Dasa Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam at Prayag for 10 days continually, the Lord instructed Rupa Goswami on the science of devotional service of the Lord. He taught the Goswami the divisions of the living creatures in 84 lakh species of life. Then about the human species. Out of them, he selected the followers of the Vedic principles. Out of them, the fruitive workers. Out of them, empiric philosophers. Out of them, the liberated souls. And out of the liberated souls, he said there's only a few only, or actually the pure devotees of Lord Sri Krishna. Srila Rupa Goswami was younger brother of Sanatan Goswami, and when he retired from service, he brought with him 2 boatfuls of gold coins. This means he brought with him some crores of rupees accumulated by the labor of his service. And before leaving the home for Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he divided the wealth as follows: 50% for the service of the Lord and his devotees, 25% for the relatives, and 25% for his personal needs in case of emergency. In that way, he set examples to all the householders how to divide the accumulated wealth. The Lord taught the Goswami about devotional service, comparing the whole subject with a creeper. And he advised to protect the bhakti creeper most carefully, especially from the elephant of offensive act unto the pure devotees. Besides the giant elephant, as above mentioned, the creeper has to be protected from the desires of sense enjoyment, monastic liberation, and perfection of the yoga system. They're all detrimental on the path of devotional progress. Similarly, violence on the living being, desire for worldly gain, worldly reception, and worldly fame are all detrimental to the progress of bhakti cult or Bhagavad Dharma. Pure devotional service must be freed from all desires of sense gratification and uncovered by fruitive aspirations and culture of monastic knowledge. One must be freed from all kinds of designations, and when one is thus converted into transcendental purity, one can then only serve the Lord by these purified senses. Would somebody else like to continue to read?
I'll continue. So long there is the desire to enjoy sensually or to become one with the Supreme or to possess the mystic powers, there is no question of attaining the stage of pure devotional service. Devotional service is conducted under 2 categories, namely primary practice and spontaneous emotion. When one can rise up to the platform of spontaneous emotional stage, he can make further progress by spiritual advancement, feeling love, and many other higher stages of devotional life for which there is no English words to express properly. We have tried to explain the science of devotional service in our book of the same name based on the authority of Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, made by Śrīla Rupa Goswami. That's the, translated, that's the nectar of devotion. Transcendental devotional service has 5 stages of reciprocation. Only the self-realization stage just after liberation from the material bondage, is called Santa or neutral stage. After that, when there is development of the transcendental knowledge of the Lord's internal potential opulences, the devotee engages himself in the Dasya stage. 3, by further development of the Dasya stage, a respectful fraternity develops, and above that, a feeling of friendship on equal terms becomes manifest. Both these stages are called Sakya stage, or the devotional service in friendship. Above this is the stage of philia affection, and this stage is called Vatsalya stage. And above this stage, there is the stage of conjugal love, and this stage is called the highest stage of love of Godhead, although there is no difference of quality in either of the above stages. The last stage of conjugal love is called Madhurya stage. So these are the 5 different rasa relationships that a devotee can have with the Lord. Thus he instructed all about the devotional service to Rupa Goswami and deputed him to Vrindavan to excavate the lost site of the places of transcendental pastimes of the Lord. After this, he came back again to Varanasi and delivered the sannyasins and instructed the elder brother of Rupa Goswami, which we have already discussed. The Lord left only 8 slokas. Sloka means verses, everyone, of his instructions in writing, and they're known as Sikshastakak. All other literatures of his divine cult were extensively written by the principal followers, the 6 Goswamis of Vrindavan and their followers. The cult of Caitanya philosophy is richer than any other one, and it is admitted to be the living religion of the day, with the potency of being spread as Vishwadharma, or the universal religion. Vishva, a universal religion. We are glad that the matter is already taken up by some enthusiastic sages, like Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Goswami Maharaj and his disciples. This is Prabhupada's guru, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Goswami Maharaj and his disciples. He's referring to his godbrothers, and most specifically A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupāda, who as prior to 62 or prior to coming to America, he was making these plans to propagate Krishna consciousness in the Western-speaking countries under the order of his spiritual master. And as a result, he started the Krishna consciousness movement in 1965. This is prior. This book was written prior to these dates, these happenings. So very significant. We shall eagerly await for the happy days of Bhagavad Dharma, or Prema Dharma, inaugurated by the Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So Prabhupada here is projecting into the future the happy days when he could present the entire Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam to the Western-speaking countries. These next slokas are so profound, and everyone should memorize these. The 8 slokas completed by the Lord are as follows. So this is Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Krishna himself, speaking these 8 profound slokas. Glory to the Sri Krishna Sankirtan, which cleanses the heart of all the dust accumulated for years together. And thus the fire of conditional life, of repeated birth and death, is extinguished. Such Sankirtan movement is the prime benediction for the humanity at large, because it spreads the rays of the benediction moon. It is the life of all transcendental knowledge. It increases the ocean of transcendental bliss, and it helps to have a taste of the full nectar for which we are always anxious. We are. So Sankirtan means the congregational chanting of the holy name for the new people in the group here. So it's this glory to this mission to spread the glories of the holy name around the world to the conditioned souls. Oh my Lord, number 2. Oh my Lord, your holy name alone can render all benediction upon the living being, and therefore you have hundreds and millions of names, like Krishna, Govinda, etc. In these transcendental names, you've invested all your transcendental energies, and there is no hard and fast rules for chanting these holy names. Oh my Lord, you have so kindly made easy approach to you by your holy name, but unfortunate as I am, I have no attraction for them. 3, one can chant the holy name of the Lord in a humble state of mind, thinking himself as lower than the straw in the street, tolerant more than the tree, devoid of all sense of false prestige, and being ready to offer all kinds of respect to others. In such a state of mind, one can chant the holy name of the Lord constantly. 4, O the Almighty Lord, I have no desire for accumulating wealth. Nadanam najanam nasindarim. I have no desire, any desire to enjoy beautiful women. Neither I want any number of followers of mine. What I want only is that I may have your causeless devotional service in my life, birth after birth. 5, O the son of Maharaj Nanda. That's Krishna, of course. O the son of Maharaj Nanda, I am your eternal servitor. And although I am so, somehow or other, I've fallen in the ocean of birth and death. Please, therefore, pick me up from this ocean of death and fix me up as one of the atoms of your lotus feet. 6, O my Lord, when shall my eyes be decorated with tears of love, flowing constantly by chanting your holy name? When my words will be choked up when uttering the holy name? When will all the hairs of my body will have eruptions by the recitation of your name? O Govinda, 7. O Govinda, feeling your separation, I'm considering a moment as 12 years or more than that, and tears flowing from my eyes like the torrents of rain. I'm feeling all vacant in the world in the absence of your presence. And finally, everyone, number 8. And this is a prayer. These prayers, like I said, should be memorized by all the members and then meditated upon constantly as the highest standard of Krishna consciousness, as demonstrated by God himself as his incarnation of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Very, very important learning. I do not know anyone except Krishna as my Lord, and he shall always remain as such, even if he handles me roughly by his embrace, or he may make me brokenhearted by not being present before me. He is completely free to do anything and everything because he is always my worshipful Lord unconditionally. So these prayers constitute the essence of how to practice Krishna consciousness. And I wanted to, before we open up for discussion, because we're at 10:42 of the class, I wanted to mention that in this reading that was so nicely done by Yaśodā-nandana Prabhu, we get insight into a world which existed in the 15th century, which is no longer here in the current modern society of 2022. Back then, the life was much different. And Lord Chaitanya, as a sannyasi, was able to travel throughout India and present Krishna consciousness to the population in his Sankirtan efforts. And throughout these discussions, one thing is very important to note, that Lord Chaitanya was speaking to his disciples, that the principle of devotional service begins with Shravanam Kirtanam, hearing and chanting. Of all the senses, the most important sense is the sense of hearing, Krishna Katha, hearing about the transcendental pastimes of the Lord. It purifies the conditioned soul, just like the Bhagavatam, by daily recitation of the Bhagavatam, by hearing the Bhagavatam, all that's inauspicious within the heart of the conditioned soul becomes destroyed almost to nil. And thus, transcendental loving service unto the Supreme Personality of God is established as an irrevocable fact, Madhukanta. Irrefutable fact. So the hearing process is, of all processes in the study of yoga, is the most important principle in making spiritual advancement. We have a seed of devotional service, Bhakti Lata Bija. This seed is watered. How is it watered, Madhukanta? I'll give the answer. It is watered by hearing and chanting, Shravanam Kirtanam, by this constant hearing and chanting of the pastimes of the Lord and these beautiful pastimes that Prabhupada has presented here in the beginning of the Bhagavatam on the life of Lord Chaitanya. Give us a vision of what spiritual life truly is, far, far away from the crowded, mad cities of the West here. This society that we have nowadays has become totally away, been misdirected away from Krishna consciousness. So we're bombarded with all kinds of Maya, all-pervading Maya, which is constantly attacking us and trying to drag us away from the purpose of human life. So Lord Chaitanya is giving this example to all of us to constantly hear the philosophy of Krishna consciousness. That's why these classes are so important. It's not just a ritual, but this is actually a principle. It's not a ritual, it's a principle. When you're working in the temple, if we were in a temple, it was compulsory for everyone to come to class every day. It wasn't an option. You had to come every day to hear the philosophy. Otherwise, you become contaminated by your own personal material thoughts and desires. In Krishna consciousness, you have to be constantly in association with other devotees. Guru, Shastra, Sadhu. These are the three principles that are necessary to make advancement. The Guru is A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupāda. His books are Shastra, being able to hear them and study them. So beautiful today, reading these pastimes of Lord Caitanya again, over and over again, this summary study. It should make us all long for that type of opportunity to be in that situation. Like I said earlier, it's unfortunate, but we live in the Western world here. You know, it's not possible for us to go out in Dodi in the winter and move around like that. We have to, because of weather conditions and that, it's very difficult. But at the same time, we have a chance to hear the philosophy of Krishna consciousness in association with other devotees, Guru, Shastra, Sadhu. Guru, Shastra, Sadhu. Very, very important process. And by constantly hearing this philosophy and associating with good devotees, like all of the people in this group are such sincere people, then we will continue to make advancement. Bhakti Lata Bija, the seed of devotional service, will grow through good association, and it'll flower into love of Godhead. That's what Krishna consciousness is. It'll flower, it'll become fruitful. It will, you'll have a change of character. If people want to know, how do they improve themselves? How do they become better devotees? How do they become fixed up? Well, this is the process. There is no other way. There is no other way. So, Yaśodā-nandana Prabhu, could you please comment further on the read? And then
there is one conversation with Śrīla Prabhupāda where Prabhupada was explaining the Shikshastakam. And Prabhupada mentioned that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu only wrote 8 verses. He didn't write commentary on Vedanta Sutra or commentary on Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam. So Prabhupada said that the writings of the Goswamis, Sanatana Goswami, Rupa Goswami, Jiva Goswami, that is the commentary on the Shikshastakam. So when we consider that Jiva Goswami alone, the approximate total of all of his writing was 400,000 verses, plus Sanatana Goswami, plus Gopal Bhatta Goswami. It's an amazing amount of transcendental literature explaining the real meaning of the Shikshastakam. So this is a very important point, because sometimes people mundane scholars accuse the Gaudiya Sampradaya of not studying Vedanta. Now, there is in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, there is a verse that is quoted by Krishnadas Kaviraj from the Garuda Purana, that it says the Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam is the natural commentary on Vedanta Sutra. So this is a very important point to understand, because in this age, it is extremely difficult for common men to study the Vedanta Sutra. It is very complex, very difficult. It requires considerable training in grammar, logic, and all different kinds of Vedic disciplines, whereas the Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam is a very natural commentary that was written by Vedavyas. So this is a very important point. Another thing is, when we read Śrīla Prabhupāda's purports in the Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam, it's very important that sometimes it's a little complex. For example, when the Nectar of Devotion came out in July of 1970 in Los Angeles, and devotees started to read this, some devotees went to Śrīla Prabhupada and asked him, this seems difficult to understand. There's many passages in this book, Nectar of Devotion, that are not easy to understand. They're very difficult to comprehend. So what should we do? And Prabhupada's reply was, well, you read it again. And devotees then asked Śrīla Prabhupada, well, what if we still don't understand it after reading again? Prabhupada said, well, then you read it again and again, and someday you will understand. In other words, Prabhupada is basically giving the baseline, the basic fundamental guideline here of how to understand his teachings. That we have to be eager to hear the teachings, to just like to what Viśvakarmā Prabhu said, we have to hear. We have to develop a taste for hearing. And if something seems a little complex, hear it again and again. Of course, nowadays with modern technology and these websites and searching programs, it has become a little easy because somebody can type in, for example, the word Shikshastakam, and you will get hundreds and dozens of explanations from Śrīla Prabhupada, from his lectures, from his conversations, from different purports in his books, from different quotations in his letters, where he explains everything from so many different angles of vision. So this is a very important point. Another thing I wanted to point out is that in the Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam itself, in the first canto, second chapter, there's some very important point, because the question will come up, well, how do we develop a taste for hearing? It is not so easy because we have so many engagements, we have so many things to do, we have so much work to be done, so much commuting to be done. So it is explained in here what happens if one hears, if one to develop the taste for hearing. This is from Canto 1, Chapter 2, text number, let me just see here. Number 16, Shushrushoho Shraddhadanasya Vasudeva Katha Ruchihi Syat Mahat Sevaya Vipraha Punyatirtha Nishevanat. O twice born sages, by serving those devotees who are completely freed from all ranges of vice, a standard of great service is done. And as a result, as the result of such great service, affinity in the messages of Vasudeva is made possible. So this is a very important point, because in order to develop a taste for hearing the Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam or Bhagavad Gita, Caitanya Charitamrita, one has to be willing to render service to devotees. Now, we're not asking for personal service, but the ultimate devotee is Śrīla Prabhupada. By rendering service to Śrīla Prabhupada, one can make substantial progress in spiritual life and get a taste for hearing about Lord Vasudeva. Antambaya Mataji, you raised your hand. Kindly enlighten us.
Can you hear me?
Of course we can hear you.
Okay, thank you. I just find it very surreal. Reading Prabhupada's books, very surreal to me. It's like when you open one of Śrīla Prabhupada's books, it's like you're stepping into the past time, you know? Everything around you in your life starts to conform to the lessons that you're learning. So he's just really there teaching you, okay, remember what you read last night? Well, here is the circumstance that'll help you get deeper into that. And it's just so, everything is so parallel. I mean, like my husband and I, every night we've been, we read at night together every night before we go to bed. And we've been reading the teachings of Lord Caitanya, Prabhupada's original version. And it's so beautiful and poetic, the way that it's written, that I just get lost. And then we compare it to the more modern translation of it, whatever, and it's just so dry. It just like the juice has been sucked out. I can't even read it. But the reading of Śrīla Prabhupada's original teachings of Lord Chaitanya just like put you in, you know, the way it's all worded just strings out so beautifully. And we're actually on the same part that you just read, you know. So it's just always so parallel. Every time I come to your classes, it's so parallel to what we're reading and we're learning. And I just want to just say that Krishna consciousness is like full. It's just completely full. It will fill your life up. It's so beautiful. And the Lord is so personal. He comes in and he takes control of your life and teaches you exactly what you want to know. If your heart is open, he'll teach you what you need to learn at that time. And we're just so blessed to have all of your associations. Thank you, Prabhu. Thank you for being there and helping us. Hare Krishna. Dandavat.
Very nice. Thank you, Mataji. Anybody else has any comments or questions? Vijay Pandit, any comment?
Abhiram Thakur, please.
Abhiram Thakur Prabhu, Hare Krishna. Go ahead.
Hare Krishna. So strange, nobody has a questions. Everybody knows everything. I'll ask question. So when we read this chapter from Lord Chaitanya's pastimes, I always have this question in my mind, and I used to ask different persons. So I'd like to hear your senior devotee's opinion. When he expressed that his spiritual master said you are a fool, number one, so you don't need to study anything, you just have to chant Hare Krishna. That's your major duties. And Lord Chaitanya, as we know, he showed his personal example for us how to do right. So what can be our expectation? We try to study something, we try to do some devotional service, we try to dovetail our mundane activities to devotional service, and so on. But the Lord Chaitanya himself, he says, well, I'll do nothing, I'll just chant Hare Krishna. So that's a little kind of sitting in my mind and asking for this question. What is our expectation to gain here in our like a teeny efforts compared to Lord Krishna, who is Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in this case?
Okay, Prabhu, I'm going to just give a partial answer to your question. What Lord Chaitanya is telling us is to understand who we are in this universe. Because if you think about your position or my position or any of our positions, how significant are we? How significant are we? Well, the answer is, in reality, we're very insignificant devotees, people. We're like specks, small specks in the universe. And despite the fact that by the grace of Prabhupada and by the grace of Lord Chaitanya, we have an understanding of how to get out of this material world. We should never, which is a great gift. This is the greatest gift you could ever have, is to have an understanding of how to get passage out of this complex state of affairs that we're in. The fact of the matter is, we always, Trinadapi Sunichena, we always have to remain humble in this state of insignificance. It's true, we have the great gift, but this gift has come by Lord Chaitanya and Prabhupada's mercy upon all of us, upon you, upon Madhukanta, upon Jiva Goswami, upon all of the members of the group and other people that are following Krishna consciousness sincerely. But we should never become puffed up and think, oh, I'm so smart, I'm so advanced, I I'm so above everyone else. I find that this type of arrogance starts to come with a lot of people. For example, some people that were initiated, I'll give another example. Some people that were initiated in the early years, and they ride on that initiation. Oh, I was initiated in 1966. But they don't chant their rounds. They don't read the Bhagavatam. They're not preaching. They're not working with other people and helping them. But at the same time, they think, oh, I'm a big devotee. So we should always remember to remain humble servants, because overall, in the reality of things, we're here for a few short years, brother, and then before you know it, we're all gone. Time and tide wait for no one. But we have the greatest opportunity as devotees of Lord Chaitanya, especially now, we're reading these pastimes of Lord Chaitanya, to take this valuable time that we have, that you have, that I have, that we all have, and invest it in Krishna's service. Here it was interesting to note as well that Lord Chaitanya, in this discussion, it was explained how we should use our wealth, how we should invest our wealth. 50% for spreading Krishna consciousness, 25% for the family and the preservation of one's own life, and 25% for emergencies. So 25% for emergencies, 25% for relatives, and 50% for the service of the Lord and his devotees. So this Lord Chaitanya was teaching us how to use whatever we have in this life moving forward, because death is inevitable for you, for me, for all of us. How to take advantage of this and invest even our material wealth in the service of the Lord. How to invest our time in the service of the Lord, like these classes that we're having. And just maybe a slight deviation, with the help of our media team, we're going to be opening up Prabhupada.tv very soon, which will be a broadcast channel for global distribution. And again, an opportunity for us to step up in our devotional service and continue to spread the Sankirtan mission, utilization, stay humble and stay focused on the service, and pray to Lord Chaitanya. Please, when you're chanting your rounds, you're asking the Lord, please, I'm begging you, give me some service. Yaśodā-nandana, Prabhu, please.
In the Shikshastakam, there's that third verse, Trinadapi Sunichena. Brahmananda once went to Śrīla Prabhupada and asked him that Lord Chaitanya says that we should be humble, humbler than a blade of grass, more tolerant than a tree. And Brahmananda told Prabhupada that it's very difficult in this world to be very humble, because everybody thinks very high of themselves. And Prabhupada told him it's very simple. First of all, you have to understand what you are, what you really are. And Prabhupada told him what you really are is 1/10,000 the tip of a hair. That is the size of the spirit soul. If you remember that, then you'll never be puffed up. But in this material world, because we identify with our body, with our origin, with our education, with so many different what's called upadhis or designations, we forget what we really are. So this is a very important instruction from Śrīla Prabhupada. There is a verse by Raghunath Das Goswami where he describes his relationship with Rupa Goswami. And he says, Adadana Srinam Danter Idam Yachi Puna Puna Śrīmad Rupa Padam Bhoja Dhulishyam Janma Janmani, that I take a clump of grass between my teeth, and I bow down at the lotus feet of Rupa Goswami birth after birth. Dhulishyam Janma Janmani, simply to become his servant, to get the dust of his lotus feet. Now, this is a very highly elevated stage of humility and devotion. But when we look at the examples of great devotees like Bhaktivedanta Thakur, Narottam Das Thakur, Śrīla Prabhupada, when we read Śrīla Prabhupada's poetry on the Jaladuta, how he's expressing himself as unqualified, he was begging for Lord Chaitanya's mercy, begging for Krishna's mercy. You look at statements of Krishna Das Kaviraj in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, describing himself as lower than the worm in the stool, or Bhaktivedanta Thakur in the song Gopinath, where he says, I'm simply a sinful person, describing himself like a mundane person. And it's important to remember, these personalities are eternal associates of Krishna. They're very powerful, empowered acharyas, but yet they're presenting themselves as the lowest of the low. So they're showing by example not to be arrogant, not to be puffed up, not to demand respect, not to think that somebody is very intelligent, very scholarly, so many different designations that's very easy to fall prey to. Because we see Prabhupada in his Chaitanya Charitamrita, in his purports, he gives so many warnings about the practice of bhakti. For example, in the Madhya Lila Chaitanya Charitamrita, Lord Chaitanya's instruction to Rupa Goswami, there are so many instructions how to cultivate the seed of bhakti. And there's so many warnings what not to do, how not to act, how not to associate with Mayavadis and Gyanis and Karmis and Yogis, not to anchor for material wealth, and not to anchor for mundane knowledge. There's so many warnings. There's one place where Śrīla Prabhupada says, if one is not fortunate to receive the seed of bhakti from the spiritual master, instead he cultivates the karma beej, the jnana beej, or the social, political, or philanthropic beej. Beej means seed. So it's very important, and Prabhupada defines what is the bhaktilata beej. Is the rule, the rules, the regulation, the processes of developing devotional service. Prabhupada has given very detailed instructions of how to practically practice devotional service. It is up to us to apply our intelligence, apply our brains. Prabhupada used to often say, use your American brains, use your Western brains to try to spread this movement. So these are very important points. Hare Krishna.
Prabhu,
Any other question or comments?
just 1 second. Abhiram, was that sufficient, or would you like further discussion? And I also wanted to say this. Thank you for your comment. I really appreciate that. Even myself, I'm reading the philosophy. When we read the passages in these books, there are many, many issues that are raised in the pages that could arouse various questions from people. So it's very important. Questions and answers. This will be part of our new Prabhupada TV program. One of the programs will be questions and answers. So by questions and answers, we can get a lot of insight into what Krishna consciousness is and how to practice it from association of other devotees. So you made a very good point, and thank you very much. Jiva Goswami Prabhu, please come forward with your question.
Yes, one thing that came to my mind when he asked that question was a verse from Bhagavad Gita, where Krishna, prior to his incarnation as Lord Chaitanya, gave very specific instructions to Arjuna. And 2:7, the second chapter, 7th verse, Arjuna shows the right attitude, which really helps me when I study Krishna consciousness or the Shikshastakam specifically. He says, I am asking you to tell me clearly what is best for me. Now I am your disciple and a soul surrendered unto you. Please instruct me. And when I say please instruct me to Śrīla Prabhupada, the experience that I have is exactly what Annabhaya Mataji was expressing earlier, that my whole life is then constructed in a way where Śrīla Prabhupada is showing me how can I make progress in Krishna consciousness? How can I chant better? How can I understand this Shikshashtakam in reality? That's it for me. Thanks.
I just
That is
want
very
to
nice.
say, Jiva Goswami, I
That
want to say something in regards to you, to yourself, to our group. This Prabhu, you've been a devotee for 20 years, brother? Jiva Goswami?
23.
23. Now, he's gone through a lot of experience in Krishna consciousness for 23 years. So 23 years for you would mean, what year did you join, Prabhu?
99.
99. And you were in
New Dwarka, Los Angeles.
New Dwarka. And then you moved did you move to a farm, Gita Nagri?
Yes, I moved there in 2014.
Okay. So he's had a great experience, everyone, in his devotional career. And he's evolved into a particular position now. Maybe you could explain to us how you feel about where you're at in Krishna consciousness nowadays compared to where you were, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. Where I am right now is I'm lower than the straw in the street. I'm a beginner. When I took an initiation from Śrīla Prabhupada in May of 2022, I understood at that point that I am just a beginner and that now I have to start from the position of knowing nothing and to start to understand what the real position is of me and in my Krishna consciousness. And I have to unlearn a lot of things that I learned in New Dwarka and in Gita Nagri. However, I'm in the right place to learn that because we are focusing on the basics. We're going back to square one, which is exactly where I need to be.
Yes. Thank you very much. I want to say that, even for myself, attending these classes, I get a sense of happiness and a restoration of my faith in Krishna consciousness in association with all of you. This Guru Shastra Sadhu principle is very important. And I might have mentioned this before. In Toronto, we had it was not just Toronto, but Montreal with Nandikeshwar. We had a very blissful relationship with everyone. There was a temple in Buffalo before Kirtananda shut it down. And there were a lot of great devotees in Buffalo and Montreal, and we had Ottawa, and even Bahudak in Montreal and Vancouver would come all the way from Vancouver to Toronto and associate with us. So there was a real sense of community amongst the Vaishnavas. It wasn't a constant fighting, constant struggle to get along. There was a demonstration of Krishna consciousness practically in your behavior, where you understood the benefits of association with other devotees. So this is not an impersonal movement. This is not a movement based on fault finding or criticism or complaints, but it was a mission based on cooperation. We all cooperated. I can remember on Saturdays, Nandi would come from Montreal with his devotees. He'd come with 3 truckloads of people. And we'd go down Yonge Street with 75 devotees on Hari Nam. In fact, what we did was we would split the party into 35 people on each side, or 37, whatever, 70. And then we would go down one part of Yonge Street. If you remember back in the 70s, Yonge Street was the centerpiece of the Canadian society. It was the biggest street in Canada. And so on Saturday, we'd have Maha Sankirtan. And one group would go down Yonge Street, and the other group would come up Yonge Street. And we go back and forth like that, hour after hour, chanting the holy name and exposing Krishna consciousness to everybody in this spirit of transcendental cooperation. And Prabhupada said, you can show your love for me by how you work together and cooperate to spread Krishna consciousness. And that is the spirit of this group, Madhukanta. We are here to step up together. We are going to take on, we have a big challenge. And nowadays, we have a great opportunity because through the power of the internet and the connectivity of the internet, we can reach millions of people every week. Can you imagine? Meet millions of people and give them the proper understanding of Krishna consciousness. Yaśodā-nanda, please give us a comment.
I just want to make a comment about a devotee on this call, Vijay Pandit Prabhu in Italy. Vijay Pandit has had a lot of personal experiences in the society, very similar to what Jiva Goswami Prabhu has explained. And our friend Vijay Pandit is very strict follower of Śrīla Prabhupāda, along with his good wife. And he has taken the task of translating little booklet, Our Living Guru, and the Prabhupada Siddhanta booklet that were on our website into Italian. And what he's done is taken a very personal approach to speak with people, meet with devotees that he knows, different friends, explaining them his experiences, explaining them his translation work and his preaching work. It's like a snowball. It's like an avalanche of contacts and preaching and discussion with many friends and devotees, and visiting friends on the weekends at their homes and taking prasadam with them. So we're very appreciative of the very hard work that he's doing there in Europe and the tremendous preaching that he's doing for Śrīla Prabhupada. We want to thank him very much for that. Along with another devotee in Montreal, Aprakrita Prabhu. For those of you who may not know, he's a French-speaking devotee who preaches in Europe, in France, Belgium, Switzerland, and also in Quebec, both in French and English. And he has a wonderful website. And he does it. He also goes on Harinam regularly in Montreal, sometimes in the winter, sometimes in the summer. So there are examples of very good devotees who are doing tremendous work for Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's mission and presenting Śrīla Prabhupada's teachings without personal motivation, without personal interpretation. I just want to mention these devotees and all kinds of other devotees as well. Hare Krishna.
Prabhu, I wanted to, Madhukanta, say that with the help of some devotees in our group, we have a marketing group, advertising group for Krishna consciousness we formed. And any of you are welcome to be a part of it. We'll be having separate meetings from the class here. For example, we're planning to print books from Canada here, A Nectar of Devotion, Prayers of Queen Kunti, Easy Journey to Other Planets, and Nectar of Instruction, the original versions from Canada here for distribution throughout our network worldwide. So we're doing it with the help of our members to reproduce these books and start the publication of them for the distribution, because we are short of books, as all of you know. It's very difficult to get the books. There are some versions left that have been printed by the BBTI, which is some kind of an organization that was formed by former members of the ISKCON movement for different purposes. But again, we want to move ahead with our own initiatives. So if anybody wants to participate with our marketing and advertising group and our propagation of Krishna consciousness through the different plans that we have, then you're more than welcome to be a part of it. Give your time to it. Give your energy to it. Give your focus to it, because this is, our process. There are lots of different groups in this current times, and we applaud everyone. It's not our purpose to decry anyone who's making an effort, but we do know that our group has a special mission, and that mission is to establish Prabhupada as the Diksha and true Siksha Guru of the Krishna Consciousness movement, and all of us as his servants. Yaśodā-nandana, I'd like, maybe you could wind up the session, and then Madhukanta, you could play the chant at the end, but I'd like to hear from Yaśodā-nandana Prabhu, his final last profound words.
Okay. I just want to quote a verse that Prabhupada often used describing the process of bhakti, and this is very important. Krishna bhakti rasa babita matihi kriyatam yadikutu api labhyate tatra laulyam mekalam mulyam nalabhyate janma koti bi sukriti bihi. Janma koti sukriti bihi. If you become pious is the good position. Yesham tvantagatam papam jananam punyakarmanam. So to become pious is good because there is hope of understanding Krishna. Otherwise, if you remain impious, namam dushkritinu mudaha prapadyante naradamaha, Bhagavad Gita 7:15. If you remain sinful, then you'll remain always rascal. You'll never understand Krishna. You'll never understand. Therefore, we must try to become pious, and that pious means no sinful activities. Therefore, we prescribe 4 sinful things, the pillars of sinful life: no illicit sex, no meat eating, no intoxication, no gambling. 4 pillars. If you break these 4 pillars from the very beginning of your spiritual life, then you stand on the platform. But if these 4 pillars are there, you stand on a false platform, not on the spiritual platform. That is yogic siddhi. Yesham tvantagatam papam jananam. So this eagerness to have Krishna bhakti rasa bhavita matihi, that eagerness is even impossible. Janma koti krut sukriti bi. It is simply happened by the mercy of Krishna and his devotee. Vedeshta sarver aham eva vidyaha, Bhagavad Gita 15:15. Vedeshu durlabham. Practical purpose of studying Vedas, Vedanta. That Vedanti means to understand Krishna. But Vedeshu durlabham. At the same time, it is said, it is very, very difficult to understand Krishna by becoming so-called Vedanti. Actually, Vedanta means, Anta means the last word. The last word of knowledge is Krishna. Janmadyasya yataha, Bhagavatam 1:1:1. Aham sarvasya prabhavaha, Bhagavad Gita 10:8. So to understand Krishna, Madhusyanam sahasreshu kastid yatati siddhaye, Bhagavad Gita 7:3. But it can be done through the mercy of devotee. Vedeshu durlabham adurlabham atma bhaktau, Brahma Samhita 5:33. Adurlabha. If you satisfy a pure devotee of Krishna, he can give you Krishna like this. Take it. Vedeshu durlabham adurlabham atma bhaktau. Brahma Samhita 5:30. Bhakta can do that. Bhaktyamam abhijanati. You come through bhakta or come through bhakti. This was from a class in Vrindavan on November 22nd, 1976. So this is a very important point. We're going to keep studying this point again in some of our next classes, because next week we're going to start on the first chapter, first of Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam, first canto, first chapter, first verse. And Prabhupada is referring to that here, how to understand that, to the mercy of a pure devotee. So thanks everybody for participating, and thanks everybody for your comments and your dedication to Lord Krishna. I just want to mention something again about two devotees from St. Petersburg, Russia. There are two women devotees, Ishwari Devi Dasi and Prema Rupa Devi Dasi. These women are quite exceptional. They have sent me videos before that in the middle of the winter, when it's freezing and it gets very cold in Russia, so those of you who know, they would go on Sankirtan and chant Hare Krishna for hours and distribute little booklets. And I was very impressed. I was very, very impressed by that level of dedication, of focus, and surrender to Śrīla Prabhupada. And I want to thank these devotees very much for participating in these classes and coming along with Śrīla Prabhupada. Hare Krishna. Vancha kalpa tarubhyascha kripa sindhubhya evacha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. You can play the kirtan, Madhukanta Prabhu. Hare Krishna.
Jaya Radha Madhava Kunya Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunya Bihari Gopijana Vallabha Girivaradhari Gopijana Vallabha Girivaradhari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunya Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunya Bihari Jaya Yaśodā-nandana Gopijana Ranjana Jaya Yaśodā-nandana Jaya Yaśodā-nandana Gopijana Ranjana Jaya Yaśodā-nandana Gopijana Ranjana Jamuna Tira Banachari Jaya Yaśodā-nandana Gopijana Ranjana Jamuna Tira Banachari Jamuna Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Raja Jana Ballabha Girivaradhari Raja Jana Ballabha Girivaradhari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Yaśodā-nandana Braja Jana Ranjana Yaśodā-nandana Braja Jana Ranjana Jamana Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari